you very much. That's helpful. Then the other question I have is related on that same page. The word grandfather clause is, grandfather class established. Can you give me an example of a grandfather class, or is that specific to each university?
My understanding is that Wichita State University went through their own exercise similar to this in 2016. And in that process, they established a grandfather class. The idea was that was approved at the time. And therefore that grandfather class wouldn't be impacted by this.
Okay, so it's specific to Wichita State.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
That's a good question. Motion to send this on to the board for the reach. Sure, yeah.
All right. For those of you who don't know me, and it's a pleasure meeting you for the first time, John. Appreciate your help via email. My name is Don Von Bergen. I'm this year's chair of the Faculty Senate President's Council for our meetings each month. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning. I sent about a week or so ago the board some concerns that I had and my fellow presidents had regarding some of the changes to the notice of non-reappointment. So anyways, I will keep these brief. Just a number of bullets here. This is a huge incentive at our institution, and after speaking with the other faculty senate presidents, they agreed with me. Specifically, the ability to have a 12-month notice of non-reappointment for non-tenure track staff and faculty when considering employment to begin with within the state system, one of the region schools, or maintaining that position. We think this would negatively impact that incentive. 2 examples. When I started with Kansas State University over 20 years ago, I started as a regular appointment administrator that also taught. I did not have tenure at the time. I left one of the school districts where I had tenure, security, enjoying it, was with a great school. A major factor in me leaving the security of that position to come work for K-State was that notice of 12-month non-reappointment. So it was also just several years ago, when I was still ahead, I received an offer to work, basically a promotion to work at a different institution outside of Kansas. One of the things that kept me at K-State was this 12-month notice of non-reappointment. I'm not aware of any cost whatsoever for the school to administer this or the state. A more recent example, last year, the fall of 2022, the K-State Physics Department hired a teaching associate professor. This is a permanent, full-time, non-tenure track position. And I've had discussions with their department head, and it is highly unlikely that that person would have accepted that position and moved from their former institution as a tenured full professor if only 90 days notice of non-reappointment came with that offer. I have consulted, I do realize everybody is not the same. K-State is different than the other institutions, but the Senate presidents met last Friday and they wholeheartedly supported flexibility. So paraphrasing a little, but if the goal is to align practices across all K-Board institutions, I would ask that a 12-month notice of non-reappointment be considered. But ultimately, our suggestion, myself and my fellow Senate presidents, would like the board to continue to make this optional and allow the individual universities to decide what is in the best interest of their institution. You read something a minute ago regarding a grandfather clause. If I read this correctly and this change were made, that would not be an option. People that currently have it at K-State or other institutions, that being a notice of non-reappointment greater than 90 days, nobody would have that anymore. Whether you worked for 2 years or 22 years, you'd go down to 90 days. So I don't know everything about the specifics on this, but as far as I'm aware, I don't see any cost. But I do know from experience, it is a huge incentive to attract quality people and retain them at our institutions. So those are my thoughts. I thank you. I am very grateful to have the opportunity to share them this morning. You bet.
Phase that over 2 years.
I'm sorry.
The grandfather.
So, the way this is drafted, this is on page 10B. Any notice procedures for non-reappointment for all classes of employees other than tenured or non-tenured or tenure track faculty members may be determined by the institution's chief executive officer subject to the following limitations. 1, for each non-tenured and non-tenured track employee hired on and after July 1st, 2024, the service end date in any notice of non-reappointment shall not exceed 90 days. So that's the first phase of implementation. And then Romanet 2, on and after July 1st, 2025, for each non-tenured and non-tenured track employee, regardless of when hired, the service end date in any notice of non-reappointment shall not exceed 90 days from the date of the notice of non-reappointment unless, and then it goes into one of 4 exceptions. One of those exceptions is if it's a grandfathered class established under number 3 prior to July 1st, 2023. So that if you were in a grandfathered class that was established prior to July 1st, 2023, you would still have whatever that is. It's not meant to affect that.
This doesn't take effect by July 1st, 2025.
And the grandfathered classes would still have whatever they're subject to.
Any questions for
John, to Mr. Von Bergen's comment about making sure that we're competitive with neighboring states as part of the due diligence process, did we look at any other surrounding states and what their policy says?
I do believe we did early on. I can't quote that to you
Sure.
right now. I do think
Probably
that we
varies, I'm sure.
found that generally all of our universities have a similar practice to surrounding states generally, with the exception of one, as this 12-month at K-State, this 12-month, and that seems to be an outlier both within our state and typically surrounding states. That's my recollection.
Okay.
We found that was significantly different than most other places.
Thank you.
Yes, it is on the agenda for the full board this afternoon if you decide to move it on.
Mr. Chair, do we know the scale of the impact for, on page 10, item B1 and 2? Do we know how many individuals at each institution would be impacted by this policy?
one is future people.
Yes.
I don't have numbers for that, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
I think I'd like to make a comment. So, I mean, we certainly want to recognize and respect what you said, sir. I think the fact we have policies in place at all demonstrate what you're saying. That's why whatever you call them and whatever environment these kind of programs exist. So folks know the circumstances of the evaluations. At the same time, many trends are suggesting there's less and less of these across lots of sorts of institutions. We're not trying to make everybody be exactly the same. We're typically cautious about that. We do think it's appropriate for us to set boundaries of how much can be done. So I think that's what underlies all of this. There may not be existing costs today, although anytime anybody did get a non-reappointment, it would have a difference in cost. I guess I would be shocked if we had no non-reappointments, that they don't have too many negatives in there at once. So I do think that there's a recognition of some sort of cost associated with that. And again, I think that the trends are there's less and less of these sorts of things. I mean, lots of companies have eliminated parachutes, handcuffs, and all those sorts of things. So again, I think we've tried to consider what you had to say.
Appreciate that.
Questions or comments? I have a motion to send this on to the board.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, John, and I know you went back to the well to keep working it, so thank you for doing that. Thank you. That's on full board. Today, okay, we got WSU here to talk about campus safety and security report. Maury, Courtney, Stacia is gonna take the lead here for us, so. Who from Wichita State wants to lead the way?
I'll just kick us off. I'm Stacia Bowden, General Counsel for Wichita State University. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. With you today is Dr. Courtney McHenry. He is our Associate Vice President for our Title IX office, which has a very long name. Civil Rights Title IX and accommodations, or ADA accessibility. And then Captain Corey Hurl, he is with our on-campus University Police Department. And I think Captain Hurl is going to start us off by giving us a brief overview from our safety and security standpoint.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. Regarding the session report that's sent out, we aren't asking for any temporary security measures or anything for as far as concealed carry. We've not really seen any issues that we've had compared to, what was anticipated by some people. So I really like how that's been adapted here. Our Clery Act, the report, we have seen a reduction this year from last year in almost every category, with the exception of being our drug law disciplinary referrals. They were up from 4 to 14, but 14 is closer to what we average each year. You continue to see more increases in mental health calls that we've had. Other entities on the university, they're well aware of that as well. We've had no security related events in the past year. It's been a good year for us. We hope that continues. As far as existing security systems, we're continuing to expand our camera system. We're continuing to expand our Mercy call boxes that we have across the university. The university-wide electronic door access, that continues to be expanded as well. As we bring more and more buildings online, they should be almost completed this year for even our existing buildings, not just the new ones that are coming online. The department itself, my department, we've expanded our in-car camera system to work with our body cameras. So it's an all adaptive system. As far as new things that we're doing, athletics has purchased upgraded scanners for events, allow us to do a lot less and intrusive contact with the public and move through a lot quicker. They're much more reliable. We've had real good results with that new system. We're also, by the end of it, well, hopefully real early this year, we're bringing the FEMA's IPAWS system, which is the integrated public awareness system that allows us to geofence emergency alerts. So people who aren't signed up with our shocker alert system, we can still get them necessary information if we have issues on campus or even nearby. So that will be a good thing. As far as trainings that we're doing, we're really pushing out our civilian response to active shooter events, which is CRAZE. It's put on by Alert. Well, it's not put on. We're certified through Alert, which is out of Texas. For those of you who may or may not be familiar with them, they're kind of the gold standard for active shooter response. So far, we have, in this previous year, we have trained over 600 community members for the university, which is astonishing. I mean, we've hosted 25, and we have another, I believe 5 or 6 more that are planned within this first couple of months of this year. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. McHenry, do you want to give your report out on the Title IX?
Sure. Thank you. All right. First, I want to make sure that you all can hear me fine.
You can, sir. Yes.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you. So my name is Dr. Courtney McHenry. Just like Stacia said, I do serve as the Associate Vice President for the Office of Civil Rights, Title IX, and ADA compliance, and I serve as the school's Title IX coordinator. I've been here since January 2023, so I've been here for 1 year. I'm from Florida, so I'm getting very used to Kansas in many different ways. Okay, and so I would just say this. So since my time here, well, not since my time here, but since I've been here, we've made many changes. First thing I like to say is that there were a few different things that were very helpful with these different changes. For instance, I would say that my first day here, I found out that we had some documentation that I needed to kind of read through. One being the 2021 Cozen O'Connor documentation with the supplemental climate. I would say the supplemental climate survey. That stuff was very, very helpful because it helped me to understand where we've been, but where we need to go. Something else that has been very helpful was just me talking to the faculty, students, and staff to figure out what they like to see. And then I also learned that we do annual Title IX training throughout here. So that was very helpful, in addition to all of my support from the president, general counsel, and so on. Title IX is changing once again, right? So we are looking forward to these new Title IX, I would say these new Title IX regs that should be coming out in March 2024. They told us back last year in May, then October, now we're in the whole new year. So it seems like they may be out in March. With that being said, we've been doing training all over the place. Some of the things that I really saw that was really, I would say, highlighted in some of those documents was that there needed to be more visibility from my side. So we have definitely done that. I would say that in the year 2023, we've trained so we've done about probably a little bit over 80 in-person trainings as it pertains to not just sexual misconduct and gender-based discrimination, but we've also made sure that the campus understands that as compared to Title VI, Title VII, and so forth. So we've done many of those different things. We changed the name of the office, everyone. From my time speaking with faculty, students, faculty, students, and staff, no one really knew what OIEC meant. And so that really bothered me. So we changed the name. And of course, that's something that I can't do by myself, but I brought the right people in to say, hey, what should this look like? So we went from the Office of Institutional Equity and Compliance to the Office of Civil Rights, Title IX, and ADA compliance, also known as CTAC. So everyone now is saying CTAC all over the place for a good reason, I would say. So we've made that change. As you all know, the more training you do, the more that everyone knows what you do, how you can help, the more cases go up. Our cases number have maybe increased probably a bit more. However, I see a big change in the number of how many people get back to us. So let's say a person files a complaint for sexual misconduct. We saw from the 2022 side that there were a good amount of those that did not get back to us. And I saw that there were some pretty good problems there, and I kind of figured out why. So I made some different changes to make sure that faculty, students, and staff felt comfortable. They knew what we do, how we can help, and that number has gone on. Has actually gone down big time. So we've made changes there. We've made partnerships all over the place with General Counsel, Human Resources, our faculty and staff, Senate presidents, in addition to the student body, I would say our student body president. So I'll say that we've been doing great. And with the help of the president, like I said before, General Counsel, help from all of my campus partners because they know things I don't know as it pertains to this institution. So with my knowledge base, in conjunction with what they helped me with, I think we're on the right path. And so far, I think that things have been going well. We've also increased our staff size, right? So we can't go around talking about all the things we do or those things that we can do, but not have the right personnel here in place. Not only do we have more staff, we have the right staff. And so I say that to say that I make sure that we have staff that don't just do investigations because that kind of comes with a somewhat negative interrogative mindset. But we can do this work with a smile, right? We can make sure that those who come to us make sure that they leave with services, resources, knowing next steps. And so that's been very helpful. But of course, I can talk more and more about what we're doing, but I know that you all have, more to do too. And then I have to make sure that we get over to General Counsel Bolden. But the last thing I'll say is I like to take a proactive method to, how we handle these things. Therefore, starting the week of January 29th, I have what I call a CTAC Dean's Tour. I have all the deans scheduled out to meet with me. I'm going to them, and we're going to sit down and talk about what we've been doing, the things that they want to see done. And I would say that things are going to vary from side to side. So maybe this department is having a higher number of microaggressions, whereas this one may be having a higher number of hostile environment based on gender. So let me say I said this. There's no way for me to really know this stuff unless I get out there and talk to these individuals. So like I said before, starting January 29th, we have a CTAC Dean's Tour, and I will take all of that information back to my team so we know how to move to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McHenry. Any questions?
Dr. McHenry, I just would say thank you for what you do, and I wish we could bottle up your enthusiasm.
Thank you so much, Board.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Great job. Stacia, anything else you wanna add?
I do not. We appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Wichita State, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay warm. Okay, on to other matters. Communication advocacy plan for all sectors of the higher ed system. Keith.
All right, thank you. So as we enter the legislative session here, the board office works with institutions to unify our public communications. We've been doing this for several years to try and make sure that we're aligned on a couple of fronts. So that anything that we're doing from a public communication standpoint is aligned with what the government relations officers are saying, what the CEOs are saying when they're in the State House. And then also make sure that we are, as a group, aligned across institutions as well. So a bunch of different messages coming through. So on system-wide issues, we start that messaging with the board. So taking the people, we typically, the board would issue the first statement. And then from there, the state universities will build on that. And so we'll be sharing, I will share with all of my counterparts at state universities, here's what the board is saying, here's not just our communications, but here's our talking points here. Here's how the board is talking about the budget and where we're going forward. And then they would build on that. And so obviously everybody has a little bit of a unique story to tell, but to kind of make sure that at a baseline level, we're aligned and saying the same things. We start from there. And we'll do the same thing with any other issues that pop up during session, make sure that we're, again, aligned on those two fronts with what's being stated by everybody who's in the State House and then aligned across our institutions. And we try and do that from a proactive standpoint with things like the budget, and as well as a reactive standpoint if something an issue pops up, to make sure that we just really have those lines of communication open internally so that we are all speaking off the same page externally. One other thing to note, not related to legislative session, but bigger picture, last month, the Council of Presidents, President Linton brought forward as an item to look at, basically the Council of Presidents standing up a group to look at communications and marketing of the system of higher education, more generally speaking, and specifically how to help use a common messaging to turn around the college going rate. And in addition to obviously all of the other strategies. So I'm assuming Council Presidents is gonna continue talking about that, and they had mentioned bringing together some folks from across the system to talk about that and help work on some strategies to kind of develop a common campaign to promote the value of higher education to campus.
Questions for Matt?
So Matt, is the message that we create for the legislative session, is that message created before the governor's budget is released, or do we wait until it's released and then show how our budget fits in with that theme?
We start in September, so the first communications that go out are after the board has all of its discussions and votes to approve that unified appropriations request. And we start there trying to message out, here's what the board is requesting and here's why, here's the impact that it's gonna have on Kansas. And then when the governor's budget comes out, we then follow up with, here's what's in the governor's budget. We're appreciative, excited to move forward and try and really pull out some of those highlights of here's what we're looking at and what we're excited to work with the legislature on moving forward. So that process starts in September of kind of putting together, here's what the board's ask is, and then continues in early January when the governor's budget comes out.
I've been really pleased with when I hear board members speak, the pillars always come out. I think that's important.
After the governor released her budget, see how.
I don't know. It's pretty succinct. I like it.
Other questions for Matt?
Appreciate your work, Matt.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Anything else to come before this governance committee today? Stand adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.